Perhaps you've seen it. Maybe in a dream. A murky, forgotten land.
Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. Unfortunately, we have another post-commentary on my blind playthrough. I've actually commentated them out of sequence, so the first one I did will be like episode 50-something, and this is the second one, which is episode 39. And no idea how these happened, just once again probably forgot to save the file before I deleted it and then continued to record because I was doing pretty marathon sessions. And something I have to address in hopes that it'll, help some people out, help some people not worry so much with the comments that they're leaving, things along that nature. There is a pattern of comments telling me about things coming, but with spoiler, tag-ish notions to them. People hinting at things and then saying, they don't know whether or not I want spoilers. Generally comments of that nature.
Satisfied?
One thing you have to bear in mind here, guys, is just because my playthrough is being uploaded quite slowly doesn't mean it's being recorded quite slowly. And a lot of people just don't seem to notice this, or don't seem to realise this, or have no real idea of how production works on something like this. And for me personally, the only reason why you don't already have pretty much the entire playthrough is because my internet can't handle it. I'm normally quite fervent when it comes to uploading things, and I physically can't do it with this, which is why it's coming out in almost like a Saturday cartoon kind of episode sequence. And this guide was recorded the day after the game came out. This playthrough, sorry, it's not a guide. So for anybody who's curious or conscious of spoiling things for me, you can't spoil things for me, folks. So don't worry about that. Just comment what you want to comment. For the people telling me to do certain things, or mentioning certain things that I'm complaining about, or I'm talking about, or I'm saying I don't like, as I fall down that awesome bit just there, you don't have to, for the most. Sometimes you will, because you never know, you always learn something, but for the most, I'm already fully aware. This game now has been out for 3 weeks. I have been playing it pretty much every day for those 3 weeks, and the couple of days before it came out. So a lot of the stuff that people are mentioning, I know quite well. And you can't spoil it because I've done it all essentially. I've played the game. I've beat all the bosses. I've done most of the side quests, pretty much all of them, except for the pickaxe one, which is just fucking stupid. And you can't really spoil it. Something else I want to do, which I'm probably going to address this in a different video because this is probably not going to be heard for another month, just courtesy of uploading and what have you. But I'll make mention of it here. I already have an entire guide for this game recorded. It is a walkthrough designed to help you destroy the game with relative ease, and I think it does exactly that. The strategies in it will have a melee strategy for people who like to use melee, and a ranged strategy for people who like to play ranged. And both of these strategies are immensely powerful. They're the most powerful ones I could find. At the time I thought I'd broken the game and I'd found something really interesting that people would like to see. And it turns out, when I've done some research into it after recording, that these strategies have already been well documented and pretty much all of the speedrunning community is using them. And I'm not that special, which is awesome. But at the same time, I thought I'd found something that people didn't know about, and it turns out everybody knows it, so. But anyhow, the guide will indeed help you crush the game, and it'll help you do it incredibly quickly because it's no nonsense, it's completely on point. I don't do any optional stuff really, except for I think killing Ornstein. That is pretty much it. Everything else is just straight through the game, beat the game, and it's a sequence of videos that when edited is probably going to be under 3 hours worth of footage, because I beat the game in about 5 hours. That was my game time clock. And the guides, when you trim out all the stuff that you don't need to see, like the upgrading and the running back and forth and the unnecessary runs to somewhere to talk to an NPC, it's going to kill a lot of that time, and deaths, things like that. So the guide is going to be great. I'm really excited to show it. I've got something a little nice that I've done at the start, which I'm hoping people will appreciate. which is just a little bit of a cinematic touch with some voiceover, and hopefully it goes down well. I couldn't be as creative as I would like to have been, because the control of the binoculars, my analogs, even on the lowest sensitivity, it's almost impossible to get perfect tracking, perfect panning, perfect, camera technique to get exactly what you want. Because I was doing it on the Xbox 360 one, screen tearing is appalling. It happens a lot, and it really sucks. And I mourn this particular section, because on the original commentary you might wonder why I was stood there for a few seconds. Well, I was doing the dialogue for the zombie man, and I was having quite a nice conversation with myself. And I have no idea what I said, but I just remember putting on a stupid voice and saying what these things would be saying if they were speaking, and I'm doing it right now. And unfortunately you're missing out on those points, which is really frustrating, but, I have 100 Audacity files, and apparently 2 of them are missing. Which is really strange, because they add up perfectly, yet some are missing. No idea. But I just get jumped on there by the rats. This sequence here in the Grave of Saints is an optional area. There's a lot of rats here, guys, and the rats themselves, whereas I don't think they're as bad as they were in Dark Souls, because they're not quite as aggressive, and the tracking on them is worse, so they're actually a lot fairer and more balanced. They're harder to hit, because on this game, like, every horizontal and diagonal swing misses anything that's remotely smaller than you are, and I really don't like it. I think it's really appalling, and I had a fantastic little clip the other day that I was going to upload, but I just decided not to, where I am literally touching somebody, and I swing my sword and I miss them. And it's not because it's going over their head. I'm swinging from 11 o'clock to 7, and it just misses. And then they swing at me, their weapon goes through a wall, no collision whatever, and hits me. And it's just, this is just not right at all, in any way. And a few moments later, I was in a different area, and I swung a mace, and on the back end of my swing, I hit a wall, and it made me recoil, and then the guy in front of me had a club, which is the exact same class of weapon. He did a swing, went completely through the wall, no detection, no collision, and hit me, and took like 40% damage, because it did counter damage on me. And it winds me up so much. And what I'm going to do, folks, is I have 2 videos planned. I have what I love about Dark Souls 2 and what I hate about it. And I'm going to try my best to keep them as like critical and as positive as I can. But like the things I love about this game are awesome. The things I hate just completely ruin it for me in some ways, in some very strange ways. Like, I could literally make a montage of me taking damage from hits that don't exist, from hits that don't touch me, from hits that never even happened. There's no animation, I just take damage. And Dark Souls didn't have that. This one has it all the time. And the only thing you can say is the new engine. And a lot of people will be thinking, well, it might be a new engine, but it plays exactly the same. And those people are completely missing the point, because just look at the movement. This game does not move like Dark Souls. It doesn't move like it at all. There is a particular winding staircase as you go up towards the Huntsman's Copse, where you physically can fall off by just doing nothing but following a path, because the clipping on the geometry of the wall is about 40 feet longer than it needs to be, because it's a massive invisible wall. Now, because the movement is so slippery, you can literally fall off by no fault of your own. There's just so much weird stuff here. And a lot of people are giving this game shit for being uninspired and not being fun, and the bosses aren't challenging, and I think all that is just nonsense. You know, everybody who says that these bosses on this game aren't challenging, do it in Company of Champions, you know? Stop spamming magic. Like, I don't understand this mentality of people who are like, oh, the boss was super easy when I threw my, 75 faith sunlight spear at it. It's like, you're using the most powerful lightning spell on a build that's designed to range a boss that can't fight a ranged battle, you know? Like the Ruin Sentinels, I personally don't think they're very challenging, because I think it's kind of bullshit that they just protect each other with the swings, and because of what they've done to the evasion and the iframes, it makes it incredibly difficult for new players and low adaptability to do anything about them. They have massive range, they're very quick, they recover fast, and they do multi-hit combos. But at the same time, I have a video, and it's part of the walkthrough that's coming, where I stunlock that boss. And I could very easily say they're the easiest boss on the game. They're absolutely, not worth the challenge or anything, but how can I say that when I'm doing a technique which essentially destroys everything they do? I fought that boss with hexes, and it's incredibly simple with hexes because they do massive damage, and at range that boss is simple. But people looking for a harder game, you can make the game harder. And I know one of the best counter-arguments to that point is you shouldn't have to. The game should be balanced. And I do think that this game is tough. I think it has the potential to be incredibly difficult, especially when you move into New Game Plus. New Game Plus is... I personally think it's worse in this game. I think what they wanted to do and what happened and what was actually delivered are two very different things. So in the video at this point, I'm making a note of reading a lot of things. You'll notice I'm still not back in the swing of playing Dark Souls because I keep leaving my menu up when I'm moving. That's literally don't play Dark Souls for a year or 6 to 8 months, and you forget things like that. But certain things you don't forget, like how on Dark Souls you could buffer a weapon change in the middle of an animation, and sometimes it would either end the animation slightly prematurely, not as quickly as I would like, because I would love complete cancelling, but even if it didn't end it prematurely, it would swap afterwards. It wasn't like that nonsense in the original version where when you pressed parry and you had your shield up, it wouldn't parry until you dropped your shield down, but technically I guess it's still a buffering like that. But in Dark Souls 2, if you do an input for something while you're in an animation, it will not do it. The only inputs that will work or happen are usually rolls. This is Roy the Explorer. He's kind of a coward. He's using the 2 challenge rings that make your weapons invisible, and he's also got the aura set, and I'm a coward apparently because I can't see it. But I think there is one set that you can't see anyway, and I think it's just perhaps a joke from Software, because you can get a visible set and you can get an invisible set, and right there he hit through my shield. So that tells me that he's using a Shotel, and that's the reason why I'm going to 2-hand, because as soon as something starts going through your shield, there's no point shielding, and I'm gonna die. Yep. Not a very smart play on my part, but I'll let myself off. It's kind of what it's all about. But as I was saying, folks, it doesn't buffer the inputs. So throughout this playthrough, you're gonna see numerous cases of me saying, I pressed to 2-hand, I pressed to un-2-hand, I pressed, to change weapons, I pressed to do certain things, and a lot of the time, it's not that bad. But the one instance where it really, really bugs me on just a mechanical level is when you see the picture and you hear the noise of the weapon changing and it doesn't change. And there might be people who've never had this happen, but if you play Dark Souls on, I'm not going to say a more expert level, just perhaps on a deeper, more mechanical level where you're aware of the frame inputs, when you're aware of the buffering, and just things like how the red invaders seem to have complete invulnerability during their rolls, yet you don't. Things like that. And I got an Ore Stone, because when you're in the Company of Champions, whenever you kill a Red Phantom, you do get an Ore Stone. You need 30 to get the final ring, and level 3 in the Covenant, which gives you the Vanquisher's Seal, which is a ring that increases the damage of your fists, and it enables them to scale off your stats, which I haven't got yet, because, believe it or not, I did an entire playthrough of this game. It took me about, 50, 60 hours, and I did not get enough Ore Stones, because, they just don't give them you enough. In fact, I think the way the Ore Stones work is kind of dumb. But back on what I was saying, it doesn't work. And I've experimented with it, and I could do videos, showing tests and showing how it needs to be tweaked and things. But what I would really like the game to do is I would like the roll to be more responsive. I would like it to be as responsive as it is in Dark Souls, because when you press backstep or when you press roll in Dark Souls, it does it. And for a lot of the times, it'll cancel out of what you're doing. But on this game, you can be waiting seconds. And seconds is a very long time in PvP, or even in PvE in a tense moment. Like, there are times when, you can feel the time it takes him to finally do the backstep. And a lot of this is down to intentional recovery frames, and just the way the game works now, because they've slowed it down, they've made it more laborious, they've made movement more particular, and You know, not necessarily in a good way, it's just kind of in its own way. But what I would like would be the backstep or the roll, preferably the backstep, because I think you can get a little bit more creative with it. I'd like it to be a little bit faster. I would like it to be one-to-one, completely responsive, and I would like it to cancel every animation you can do at any point in it. Every single one. And I think it'll allow for a hell of a lot more creative and technical play. And I know for a fact it'll never happen. But that's what I would do if I was on this dev team. Like, I would have it so that if you had a weapon that had an incredibly fast swing speed, but every alternating swing after was slower, that you could literally swing, cancel, swing, cancel, and you could spam that super fast damage building technique. A little bit like the jump cancelling in your Devil May Cry's, a little bit like the duck cancelling in your God Hand, where if you've ever played that game, you can do a move, and if you flick up on the analog, it'll duck, and you can immediately go back into it without recovery frames, and it enables you to stack damage quickly, it enables you to dodge and things. And I just think it'd make the game amazing, because all I want from Dark Souls is better. And there's a lot of great things in this game, there's a lot of great changes, there's also a lot of questionable ones, but I want it to be, you know, up there with top tier fighting games. And I know it's not, I know it's an action game, and I know it'll never be that, but there are still action games that do action considerably better, even though this does so much. And like, the cancelling would be amazing, because you'd be able to cancel so many interesting things. And to the game's credit, you can cancel spells. And it's nowhere near as awkward as it was in Dark Souls, because in Dark Souls you had to pivot, and a lot of people use this to have creative movement, to do WOG cancels, to do, you know, various other cancels. Some stuff just couldn't really cancel. In this game, all you have to do is roll or backstep, and the backstep can make it really interesting, because you can, you know, begin a lightning spear, you can get them thinking you're going to do magic, and, you know, for instance, if they try to rush you to get some cheap hits in, I say cheap hits, they're not really cheap, they're intelligent hits, you know, just to get some damage on you, you can backstep into, you know, a claymore spinning attack, and they're like, whoa, what the hell's happening? I thought he was going to throw a spear, and it adds that element of dimensions to the combat. Like a good example on Dark Souls 1 was when you had the bow. You know, you've probably seen Peeve a million times. Aim a bow at somebody, they run towards him, he swaps to his shield immediately, and he parries them. You know, it's the bow lure. It became a thing. I don't think he invented it, it's just he used it a lot, so it's a good example. Everybody used Peeve. You know, I used it myself. Everybody used it. It's a great technique to catch people out, especially new players or inexperienced PvPers. I don't think you can do that on this game, because everything takes so fucking long to do. Like, swapping weapons, and it's just... it just takes so long. There's no immediacy to it, and it's intentional, which is some of the most sad parts. And I'm going to be making videos keeping up with the patches, guys, to update people on the patch notes and exactly what's happening and my thoughts on them. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to try and collect a list of what patches I would make. And that way we can have some theory crafting, we can have everybody coming together to say what they would change, what they would keep the same. Because regardless of your feelings on the things in the game, everybody agrees that they need to change stuff, and everybody thinks they have to change stuff in varying degrees. So I think that kind of video can not necessarily bring a community together, but it can definitely bring a lot of voices together in both Discord and Harmony, so it could be really fun. But of all the places to lose the live commentary, I suppose this is not a bad one, because I know this area very well. You might wonder what I'm speaking about on this particular instance. I was looking for Great Combustion, because for some reason I thought I picked it up in this place, and I think you find regular combustion here. So while I was doing this little adventure, I decided to check the walls and have a look around and things, and it seemed okay, you know, nothing too special. People wondering where I am, you know, currently, as in what I'm doing at this moment in time. I'm still trying to get all the weapons. It's absolutely ridiculous, guys. The drop rate on this game is horrible. It's one of the worst drop rates I think I've ever seen in my entire life of playing video games. You know, it reminds me of like Final Fantasy VIII, when you really need the energy crystals to get Lionheart, and the rubies just won't drop them. And, you know, you can't be asked to do the other methods of getting them, which I think... Can't you just do the Elnoil in Esthar and he always spawns if you know the trick? But anyhow, the ruby dragons, man. Getting them to spawn, and then when they do spawn, getting them to drop. And at times it can just feel like it's pointless. And I think Dark Souls 2 is probably worse, as that idiot kills himself. it's so bad. And you use the rusted coin, which gives you an extra percentage on drop rates. You use all the equipment that adds drop rates, and then you look in the official guide, which I own, and it says it has a 1% drop chance anyway. So a 1% drop chance on an enemy that spawns once per cycle of a bonfire ascetic, and they have 5 other drops. Like, what the hell were they thinking? You know, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I literally have a place at this moment in time that is bonfire intensity 16, because that's how fucking long it took it to drop a damn weapon. And there's something wrong with that, in my opinion. Like, going back onto the video that I'm going to make where I think, you know, certain things would be patched, and this is what I would patch them like. What I would do with the drops is I would have the one-off phantoms spawn one-off on New Game Plus, and then on New Game Plus Plus and every plus afterwards, give them a 15 respawn. You know, just give us a chance. And even on enemies that have a 15 respawn, on the extinction spawn, when you kill them and they don't come back, make them drop what they're meant to drop. Because at that point, you've fucking earned it, man. You've killed them 14 times, and on the 15th one, boom, you got what you needed. You know, it doesn't have to be so ridiculously against the player. Like, I was reading the GameFAQ forums the other day, which I tend to stay away from GameFAQs because it's just full of trolls, man. And when it's not trolls, it's elitist cunts, and it's just the worst aspects of any community seem to congregate there. And it's just so, it's more egos than it is the game, and it's not the people on there's fault, it's just certain individuals that just ruin it for everybody, and people that have been there so long that they don't realise that they're all just cupping each other's farts in wine glasses and getting all fucking San Francisco on it, and it's just unnecessary. But I was reading somebody say that they love the fact you can't, you know, buy Twinkling Titanite, because it means that not everybody will have everything they want, and it, you know, it makes people make decisions and pick what they need, and either earn it or go without, which I think is a great mentality to think about. But at the same time, I would prefer a shop. Like, Dark Souls 1 had it the exact same way, and they patched a shop in, you know. Like, there are so many aspects of this game, both good and bad, which were present in Dark Souls only after patches. And it really does beg the question, were the people who worked on the game anything to do with Dark Souls at all? Or any part of those meetings? Did they play Dark Souls post-patch? Because they've made the same mistakes twice. With almost everything, you know? It's kind of crazy that it can happen. And a lot of the videos you're seeing from popular PvPers and popular YouTubers, the PvE side is not getting as much hammer as the PvP is, but the online is getting just brutalized at this moment in time, because you have 2 factions at this point. You have the faction that got the game early thanks to From Software, you know, giving them it. So you've got the whole brown nose aspect of those being so far up From's arse because they got an early copy that they daren't say anything bad against the game. And then on the other side, you've got the people who didn't get the game early, who've played a lot of Dark Souls, and there's a lot of things in Dark Souls 2 that doesn't make any sense. So there's this kind of, you know, disharmony which I really enjoy, this cognitive dissonance of these 2 ideals. And I don't even know where I fit in with that, because I'm really enjoying the PvP when I get it, but I'm not getting it often because of connection issues, which they said there were going to be dedicated servers, and there are, but it's only for the matchmaking. And if I'm using matchmaking with dedicated servers, then they just aren't good enough, because my internet might not be great, but it should at least fucking find people. But anyhow, too much swearing in that one. I do apologise, guys. I am quite a cursey sailor sometimes, but thank you for watching, and hopefully you will not have to put up with any more post commentary, and all this will be live. So thank you, and you take care now.